Hello everybody and welcome to the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series, Season 4, Round 3, and we're at the brilliant, beautiful and just historic, straight up fantastic circuit of Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. My name is Jack Oliphant, and joining me in the commentary box as per usual for the Radicals is Ed May. Ed, how the devil are you?
I'm doing it brilliantly. Thank you very much, Jack. And yes, we are here, as you mentioned, at the wonderful Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, the third round of this fourth season of the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series. And it's a little bit of a cooler day, isn't it? Just early on in the evening in Sim in the beautiful Ardennes Forest, and the cars are about to make their way out onto the circuit for their qualifying lap times. Now, it's the same format as it was before, and as it probably will be for the remainder of the season. 10 minutes to set 3 flying laps. And we do quite often see, don't we, Jack, that third and final lap being the fastest one that the drivers make.
Absolutely, yeah. Spa's a bit of a longer circuit, so there may be opportunity to warm the tyres up and warm the car and everything during the first out lap, whereas, say, Brands Hatch Indy or something like that, it takes about 10 laps to even get the car warm. But we may well see some quicker lap times and representative lap times straight away. You've got to keep an eye out on it. But as you may well notice, and if you haven't tuned into the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series before, they are on solo qualifying. So, for instance, Dave Kirkham are just going down the hill now, but if we switch to Mike Busson, same bit of track, but Dave Kirkman has disappeared, so they've got no traffic to contend with. They can just get out there, they can focus, and that's how we do it. And it's one of the advantages of the sim, isn't it, Ed? It's one of these things you couldn't do in real life racing. It would take far too long, but it's a fantastic opportunity that these guys have.
Oh yes, it really is. It's such a great circuit, and hopefully we will be able to see all of the drivers doing their very best and get to the top of the timing sheets. Just having a look though on the timing software, who is currently going through. These are just outlaps, aren't they, at the moment, actually, Jack? So nothing concrete yet. One to watch out for though is definitely John McHutchinson, isn't he? Because he's been very quick.
Yeah, and he's I think he's won the last 2 rounds, so he's definitely going to be coming into Spa with a strong momentum behind him, and he's obviously got high hopes as well. It's not to be said that it's going to go all his own way. Dominic Lang-Webb in the Radical as well. I was about to say in the Radical, but of course I'm all the Radicals. He's going to be fancying himself as a pretty strong contender here. I'm sure he's always one to catch the eye. So is Dan Webster, as make sure he's going to be right at the front of the field as well. You got to make sure you're keeping an eye on him. So a few drivers here, there, and everywhere. But John McHutchinson, as we said before, is probably your favourite going into this one. He's been pretty untouchable, to be honest. Ed, I know you weren't here for round 1, but when you were here last week, it was really the McHutchinson show.
It really was. Yeah, he was so strong. A really just competent performer. And as soon as he was able to break away from the rest of the pack, well, there was no one that could hold a candle to him. So we'll see how this fares in Spa. Obviously, similar circuit. You do have lots of glass out sections and heavy braking zones, but that middle sector is where drivers can really use their ability, their pace, to try and break away and see if they can escape that slipstream. But it's definitely easier said than done. We're just waiting for the first times to come through, and these are all outlaps that the drivers are currently on, so nothing concrete yet, but soon we should be able to see the drivers on their flying laps.
Yeah, I mean, this is arguably their first flying lap, but like we said before, it's one of those where you have to warm the cars up and everything like that, so you really do have to take the times that will appear soon with a pinch of salt. It is such a long lap here, and I suppose that's another thing we can mention though, Ed, because obviously we're going to be going into a half-hour race. Realistically, you don't want to be taking any damage because the in lap is so long and the out lap is so long, the pit lane is very long as well. It's one of those circuits that really does punish you if you end up having to come into the pits at all. So hopefully we don't see any of that, fingers crossed. It does mean, however, that you have a really long build-up to qualifying. We're nearly 5 minutes in. There were just over 4 minutes into this qualifying, and we haven't yet seen a lap time. This is about to change, however, because as John McCutcheon rounds out the final couple of corners, his time will appear along with potentially Paul Crabb and a few other drivers. And there we go, John McCutcheon with a 2 minute 10.7. Paul Crabb just behind, as I was mentioning him. Dominic Lang-Webb about 7 tenths behind John. And then Martin Bucker. And to be honest, as we've said once or twice already, they're not meaningless, but the times will improve with this flying lap that these drivers are now on.
Yeah, so times starting to come through, and to the top of the pile goes John McCutcheon, as he often tends to do. We're going to follow him down the Kemmel Straight and into Les Combes. Paul Crabb as well. He's been having a much better time so far in this qualifying session than he did at Road America. Can he put all of his trials and tribulations behind him and focus on the present, focus on getting that little bit quicker and beating John McCutcheon to the top of the timing sheets?
No one's gone purple sector 1 just yet, but potentially Dan Webster, there we go, he gets into 3rd place. Another driver we were expecting to see right at the sharp end. Another crucial aspect of Spa, Ed, that you always have to mention, but obviously solo qualifying doesn't really lead into. The draft is going to be really heavy here. Even in these cars that are just as slippery as anything, there's still that Kemmel Straight and through Blanchemont, it is still going to be an impact.
Yeah, it really will, and that's going to be I think the key for a lot of drivers is trying to make that impact and save your best for last. Go out there in this qualifying session, put yourself in the best spot to take something from the race, because while these radicals are pretty quick, they aren't the easiest things to make overtakes in. We saw on circuits, even long flat out straights like Road America, it wasn't really the easiest track to make a passing move, so drivers need to get their qualifyings nailed in and try and make the most of it, make sure they don't have any mistakes as well, because that is a key thing we saw. Drivers making a few little errors here and there, and that really harmed them in the race. Following Paul Crabb through the bus stop chicane, powers out nicely. John McCutcheon comes across the line just before him and improves by 1/10 of a second. How much does Paul Crabb improve by? Pretty much the same margin.
Yeah, 0.3 of a second down now as Simon Edwards goes into 3rd place. Dan Webster, we've got Graham Brown. What's he going to produce across the line? I don't think it's a particularly quick lap. Oh, yeah, improved by about 0.5 of a second. Dan Webster's another driver we're going to have to keep an eye on. Paul LeMay's on a decent time as well. Expect to see him and James Child jump up the order. They're in 9th and 10th at the moment. Dan Webster with the purple sector 2 as he's coming up to the back end of the circuit through Blanchemont soon enough. Green sectors all the way apart from his sector 1, and that's pretty much a theme actually. Everybody's going green all apart from sector 1, so not entirely sure why that is, but you know, Paul, there you go, Paul LeMay up to 3rd position from about 10th on the grid. What can Dan Webster pull out the bag now? And I think it's gone 2nd place. There we go. So he is within touching distance of John McCutcheon, and that's better than a lot of people have done this season.
Yeah, I'm thinking so as well. It's a very, very good effort from Dan Webster closing into John McCutcheon. But this is it. This is the final lap for drivers to make in qualifying. We're already seeing 2 now. We're into the 3rd and final time. Just look at the sea of orange on the left-hand side. Just the closeness it is between all of the drivers is immense. That orange means that it's less than 0.5 second separating the drivers from one another. Look at this, actually. We've got a time from Darrell Taylor that's only 9 thousandths shy of Michael LeMay. So you can see the thinnest of margins separating these drivers means that we're going to be in for an absolute corker of a race.
Yeah, no, I don't want to focus on him all the time, but to be fair, normally we don't actually see him at all in the race because he's so far out ahead. But I think John McCutcheon, according to my lap timers anyway, he's put in 2 purple sectors on this lap alone. Considering he's already the fastest driver, he gets his back end out there really loose. Is that tactical to try and maybe get back on the power? It'd be an unusual line through the first apex. I could understand it through the second. But he comes across the line, and indeed he does improve. So there were 2 purple sectors, and now he's now 3.5 tenths ahead of Dan Webster. Paul Crabb doesn't improve, but Simon Edwards does. Up to 3rd place, only 0.02 of a second behind Dan Webster. And I have to say, Dan he's not flying. He's not gone quicker in sector 1 and 2, but he has gone purple in sector 3 by about 0.5 of a second compared to John McCutcheon. So we'll keep an eye on Dan Webster. Obviously, everybody else can keep an eye on the left-hand side. Make sure you don't miss your favourite drivers who are making maybe setting some good lap times. We will run through the order, obviously, and the grid before we get going. But Dan Webster coming up to the final chicane. It's going to have to be a big ask to just try and overtake John here, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really will, because John Hutchinson has been very, very strong. 0.3 per second. I'm not sure if Dan Webster's going to be able to make up that gap, and no, he doesn't. James Child comes across the line, is 9th fastest. Does he improve any higher? No, he doesn't either. So then we focus back to one of the only other drivers out on a flying lap, Jamie Bird, but he won't be able to complete it because qualifying has come to an end.
It has indeed. So we'll be able to bring you the grid order. And in fact, we can do that now. So Ed, why don't you take us through it while I set up the stream?
Yeah, so let us run you through the starting order. John McCutcheon and Dan Webster make up your front row. The pair of them will battle their way through La Source and into Eau Rouge on the first lap, with Simon Edwards and Paul Crabb right in behind on the second row. Paul LeMay will start 5th with Graham Brown alongside in 6th with Martin Booker and Dominic Langweb 7th and 8th. James Child and Paul Clark complete your top 10 with Frankie Dixon 11th and Mike Busson in 12th place. 13th will see Chris Bassett ahead of Simon Maltby with Dave Kirkman, Jamie Bird, Michael LeMay, Darrell Taylor, Jamie Thomas and Stuart Mathers completing the top 20 drivers with Ray Peasley, Phil Jocelyn, Ryan Clark, Matthew Burkett, and last but not least, Carl Handley rounding out the 25-car grid for this third round of racing at Spa. The drivers making their way to the grid now. See Dan Webster waiting for John McCutcheon and a few more, and then we can get this third race of the season underway.
Yeah, exactly. A nice full grid of cars here. They're just spawning in. Lights are on, obviously. Hopefully it doesn't get too dark out there because it will be a bit tricky to see around Spa. There is, just so you know, we won't mention it too much, but there is 2 groups. So you may have seen last week there was like 40 drivers or something out on circuit. They have split the drivers into 2 groups. We're focusing on Group 1. So if you tuned in expecting to see maybe your favourite driver and you can't quite see them, that may well be why. They may well be in Group 2, which we unfortunately don't broadcast. But we obviously got to focus on what's in front of us. The Group 1, guys, is going to be very exciting indeed. And with about 5 seconds to go, you can see John McCutcheon has spawned in. James Child and Paul Clark are yet to join us on the grid. James Child has just joined in time. Paul Clark may well be starting from the grid. But as the engine notes rise, the lights come on. And let's see if John McCutcheon can get a clean start. It's a really quick lights out and away we go. Dan Webster with a decent start. He's going to maintain his way into 2nd place. Simon Edwards blends into 3rd. And if we scoot down the order, we can see them starting to go 2 by 2. The top 4 gone really clean. And to be fair, the rest of the field have done a good job going through the source as well. Really strong start from all of them. Paul LeMay trying to get into the slipstream of the driver in front of us, Graham Brown. There was a swap off the line between those 2, and there was a swap between James Child and Dominic Lang-Webb. However, the top 4 are pretty much stayed as they are, but Ed, that may not last very long.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that will last. We'll see as they make their way into Lake Calm. Dan Webster looks to the outside, but can't find a way through. So it is John McCutcheon from Dan Webster, from Simon Edwards from Paul Crabb. Graham Brown is up 1 place into 5th. Paul LeMay drops 1 down into 6th. Martin Booker 7th. James Child up 1 place into 8th, overtaking Dominic Langwebb, who is now in 9th. And Frankie Dixon up inside the top 10. Is he going to make it through up into 9th place? Yes, he does. It's from Frankie Dixon. Dominic Langwebb just behind in 10th now.
Yeah, Dominic Langwebb not having a good start for this race. He started in 8th place, down to 10th, as you mentioned before. Simon Maltby, however, just behind him, is having a very nice race. Up 3 positions, obviously starting in 14th, up to 11th, and maybe going for one more here up the inside. No, in fact, actually, that was Chris Bassett looking up the inside. Simon Maltby actually having to go slightly defensive. Missing the apex, thinking there may well be a radical size hole that someone might well fill. Manages to defend it through the left. Going now into the double right as they go on towards the back flat out section. They're hitting the limiter for a very long time as they go through Blanchemont, and a few drivers going off on the outside there as well. Dave Kirkman as being one of them as they now form up 2 by 2.
So we come towards the final part of this first lap of racing. Dave Kirkman, he's going to be looking to try and find a way through, but can't do it yet as the slot in behind Chris Bassett as they make their way through the bus stop chicane. Jamie Bird and Michael LeMay tussling in the background. You can see them going too wide as they make their way now down the start-finish straight. This is very close up here, especially up towards the front as we have Paul LeMay. Runs a little bit wide, and is he going to concede the position to Martin Booker? Martin down the inside line. They might fight too wide into... Oh, no, they don't. They managed to sort themselves out into Eau Rouge and Radion now. So Martin Booker up another place. Into sixth for the moment, but losing touch slightly to Graham Brown. Is that going to leave him vulnerable? Because Paul LeMay is going to look one way and then the other, but can't close in with enough to spare into Laycombe. So he has to lunge for it. Can't quite get the move to stick.
Yeah, the top four, the only drivers who are yet to move about. John McCutcheon leading the way. Dan Webster with Simon Edwards in very close company indeed. Paul Crabb in fourth, and Graham Brown has obviously moved himself up into fifth position. Then there is a bit of a gap, so the top five have pulled away quite nicely ahead of Martin Booker, Paul LeMay, James Charles, Frankie Dixon and Dominic Lang-Webb, who all obviously sort of falling over each other somewhat for sixth position. We haven't had that many drivers crashing yet. I'll just say that. I thought we were about to see a huge one between James Charles and Paul LeMay, but luckily nothing happened through Pouon, as though they're going through Poo out almost, I think, as they come through. James Charles looking in his mirrors, looking for that switchback. Paul LeMay having his mirrors absolutely filled with James Charles Radical. A nice looking sort of spec map on that as well. Looking really smart, matte blue almost with that shiny orange. Looking really cool. And Frankie Dixon though, and then Dominic Lang-Webb, all very much interested in taking these positions off them. They run about 0.2 of a second from LeMay down to Webb.
So it's fairly close, isn't it, all the way up there? We've got to see if that will last, or if they are maybe going to find out the hard way that when you're racing this close together, sometimes things can go awry. Lang-Webb in the background just biding his time as Frankie Dixon is trying to find a way past James Charles, but can't do it for the moment. Meanwhile, up in front, John McCutcheon still leads ahead of Dan Webster. Dan Webster, who's just set the fastest lap of the race so far. Simon Edwards isn't too far behind himself, so it's not all over yet for the lead of the race. But look at Frankie Dixon taking advantage and getting up into 8th place ahead of James Charles now. Yeah,
James Charles is making a mistake through the source. It's not uncommon, it has to be said. We do see it quite a lot, and we've seen it from a couple of drivers already. But what I want to focus on is that John McCutcheon has just been caught ever so slightly by Dan Webster. You mentioned just before, didn't you, Ed, that Dan Webster did set the fastest lap of the race, and he's still pushing McCutcheon all the way, and that slipstream, it doesn't always affect these radicals massively, but every little helps when considering you're basically topping out these radicals by the time you get through Eau Rouge. Every sort of mile an hour, half a mile an hour, it counts and really does help. But McCutcheon's ability to rotate that car through the corners is really putting him in good stead in this middle sector. Dan Webster just needs to try and wait for a mistake and be close enough to pounce, because it looks like he's got good pace underneath him, doesn't it, Ed?
Yeah, it really does, but it's all about just trying to capitalise on that pace, isn't it? Well, you can, of course, do it once or twice, but to do it over the course of a race, this is something else entirely. And John McCutcheon has that consistency. I've only ever seen him make one real mistake, and that was a couple of months ago. So I'm fairly certain he's going to be having it all up the system, and it's going to be a job for Dan Webster to try and get past him. You can see on board that he's closing that gap down now under 0.2 of a second. They come through Blanchimont flat out, coasting it through. But is there a way past into the bus stop chicane? No, there isn't. Has to wait and maybe set up a move in advance, taking a slightly different line coming out of the bus stop chicane. With John McCutcheon, he gets that direction change done really nicely and actually extends his margin just a touch.
Yeah, he's very impressive with getting with the throttle application and steering with the pedals in a lot of ways. I mean, look how he chucks the back end out there of such a high downforce car. It's a real specialist sort of niche, and you don't want to do that too much, because in an endurance race you would ruin the rear tyres. But in a sprint race, a little like what we've got here tonight, you can sort of get away with that slightly. It will start to fade away from you towards the end of the race. But if anybody watches the British touring cars, you'll know the name Dan Camish, and he's in the Porsche at the moment. I remember watching him earlier on in his career in the Porsche. Is Dan Webster saving fuel here or something? He definitely came off the throttle there, Ed, didn't he? Is this a tactical ploy by Dan?
You know, it could be maybe Dan Webster just waiting a little while, making sure the tyres are good until the end of the race. We've seen drivers do that before, haven't we? Like, sort of wait a little while, get the tyres in good stead, and then go for a charge late on. Paul Crabbe is not doing too badly for himself either, actually, staying nice and steadily in fourth, just at the back of that fight for the front three. And we're watching, though, James Child, who's under a little bit of pressure, actually, from Dominic Langweb. But Dominic can't really find a way through here. You need to wait a little while and maybe set it up into the bus stop chicane. And if you can't do that, then it is a little bit of a wait, perhaps, unless you can maybe take your chance into Lacombe. Just look at these radicals, though. They're so good, aren't they, around this track? The downforce, it must be brilliant.
Yeah, they're like gnats, aren't they? The way they just change direction. It's quite incredible, and the sort of buzz that they have from their engines as well. It's an awesome spectacle to behold. And you mentioned Paul Crabbe just before, Ed, and I want to give him another shout out really, because he's put in a purple lap, a 2 minute 10.75. I think the previous one, Simon Edwards, did go 100th quicker, but it must have been invalid. John McCutcheon, however, he's three tenths down on Simon Edwards and Paul Crabbe's best lap time, and I think maybe that's something to do with the slipstream, as we mentioned it before. But really good showing by Paul Crabbe. But as I was mentioning before, I thought, oh, James Bird, where is he tumbling down the order from? And it is from there in the final couple of corners. Must have had a little bit of a spin. Let's have a look and see if we can see what's cracking. That is not an egg Bird joke, by the way. It's just coincidental. As Bird goes into the final chicane, I think he just outbrakes himself. Yeah, sends too much speed in the rear end. Go, let's go. He gets away with it, to be honest, doesn't he? That could have been a bit of a nasty incident.
Yeah, this is a... we're going to have a look at this again. No, we're not going to have a look at this again. Actually, no, we're going to follow... Yeah, it's just... It's so weird how these cars can just go, isn't it? It's tricky cars to drive, but it's just a sign of what these drivers are having to deal with lap after lap. Thankfully, no one was contacted. But it is a great advert for these drivers' ability, because I was doing a few laps. This car is so difficult to get a hold of, to have a handle on, because it can just go at a moment's notice.
Yeah, as we said before, it changes direction basically by instinct and feel alone, doesn't it? You just have to telepathically tell the steering wheel which way you want to go, and it will do it. And unfortunately, if you just take too much speed in, the steering is so reactive that, you know, if you're going up a hill or an incline change, then it can upset the car quite a lot. And that's exactly what we just saw then. Now, we've been caught out a couple of times, Ed, especially in my first week here, but these drivers do have to make a pit stop in this race. So I'm under the impression, I'm just going to go back on board with Dan Webster. I think he's slightly fuel saving, because he's really not attacking John McCutcheon as much as you would think. I think he's it's more apparent at the end of the Camel Straight, but I think he's slightly fuel saving. If he can go a lap longer, that would mean taking a lap less fuel, which would mean his pit stop is about a second quicker or something like that. That could really just undercut John McCutcheon in some weird way and get him into the race lead.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't remember there being any fuel stops last race. Was this a change to the rules that have pit stops now?
I'm pretty sure they had pit stops last race.
I think they only had pit stops for drivers that suffered damage, I think. I don't know if there were pit stops for everyone else. I can't remember.
Great commentator preparation here by the two of us, isn't it? And we'll see, I suppose. We will be sort of given a prompt when these guys do come in, if they do come in at all. But yeah, I thought there was. You clearly don't, as Dan Webster now starts to look at the Flying Scot ahead of him.
Yeah, you can see the way he's racing. He's not really backing out now, is he? He's trying to go for that position, maybe put himself in the best spot to take advantage, because now look at how close Simon Edwards and Paul Crabbe are getting. Slipstream is doing a good job of keeping the cars close, but maybe not so much of allowing them to pass one another. Dan Webster closing in behind as we see this fight between Ilhang Webb and James Child, with Chris Bassett just in the background, arriving on the scene, maybe getting involved. Martin Booker is trying to streak away and get out of trouble in terms of this fight, and he's doing a good job of that, staying in 7th place, around about 2 seconds up the road. Instead, he's going to have his own fight with Paul LeMay. Speaking of Paul LeMay, we're going to look at Michael LeMay. This was into the hairpin at the end of the lap, the bus stop chicane. Ooh, and he just overcooks it, locks the brakes, does great to not have any contact. That was some scary stuff though, wasn't it? That could have ended in tears, but now look at them come through Blanchimont. Up into the bus stop chicane. Is there a way through for Dan Webster? Can he line up a move? Can he get a good exit? No, not quite, but he is still close enough. Could fancy a lunge into last source, potentially. Or instead try and use the closeness he has to keep that gap as low as possible as they come now towards Eau Rouge and Radion.
You feel like Dan Webster's teasing not only us, but John McCutcheon somewhat, don't you? I mean, there could well be proof in the pudding here with what you said, the slipstream allowing people to catch up, but it's very difficult to pass.
Oh, he's close.
It is very close now, but of course, as soon as you come out the slipstream, you get hit with a wall of air, don't you? Which all of a sudden slows you back up. So you may have the overspeed going into it, but as soon as you pull out, you don't necessarily have it. But Dan Webster clearly has an inclination that he can get into this race lead, and he does. He gets ahead of John McCutcheon this time round. It's taken him 7 out of the 11 laps, but he's gone and done it for now. John McCutcheon will not like that one bit.
No, it was actually quite smart from John. You can see into the corner, he breaks a little bit earlier, concedes the position, doesn't want to lose out anymore. He realised that Dan Webster had the speed, even if it was the outside line into Les Combes, fighting it side by side. It could either end in tears or you can get shuffled back through the pack and end up behind Simon Edwards and Paul Crabbe. So instead, he cut his losses, backed out, allowed Dan Webster to come through and just consolidate P2. He has faith in his ability to get back past before the end of the race. So this is cracking stuff. You're going to see John McCutcheon give it his everything, along with Simon Edwards, Paul Crabbe, and the current leader of the race now, Dan Webster.
I think you were right. Oh, we've had a spinner in the background, and that's Graham Brown. Graham Brown's gone round, and I think it was Code Brown as he came out of Pouon there, unfortunately. But no, it wasn't Pouon. Damn, I thought that was going to be so good. But yeah, unfortunately for Graham Brown, he has lost a lot of time. He hasn't lost any positions, though, has he? Crucially, he did so well to pull away from Paul LeMay, Martin Booker, and Dominic Lang-Webb. He's now got to do all that again.
Yeah, so it's been interesting to see this fight occur, but John McCutcheon is close behind Dan Webster, can't find a way through into the bus stop chicane. So in towards last source they will go. John McCutcheon closing in, but not getting much of a slipstream into the first corner. Loses touch slightly on corner entry, but on corner exit he has good drive, good slipstream. Will he be close enough as they make their way over the crest at Radion? And see just how close they get. It's testament to the downforce of these cars that they can still go flat out up the hill, even with dirty air affecting them. John McCutcheon is close now, though, and look at this. He's going to go to the outside into Les Combes. Is he going to get it to work out? Will he lose out? Hard onto the brakes, the pair of them go, and John McCutcheon's turn now is to sweep around the outside and take back P1.
Yeah, look at Simon Edwards. He's very interested, isn't he? But it's hard enough to make one position up, let alone try and dive 2 people who are currently fighting for the lead of this race. Simon Edwards, I would say, is in a pretty bang-on position. Paul Crabbe's done a very good job of trying to keep on the backside of them. I remember in the last week, I think he had very good pace, but he ended up having an unfortunate race. This time round, he seems to have fixed his race issue, luck problem, whatever it may have been, whether it was racecraft or just pure luck. He's latched himself onto the back of these very quick drivers and is able to sort of keep it there or thereabouts. And as we said before, they're all about 0.3 of a second away from each other, so they're all pretty much bang on each other's pace, which is really nice to see. And normally we don't get to see much of John McCutcheon because he is out in the lead of the race and he doesn't really get involved in any battles. But this has been a sensational race so far between these top four, but also that fight for 6th place between Paul LeMay, Martin Booker, Dominic Lamb-Webb and James Child. That's been really interesting. Unfortunately, there have been loads of battles up and down the circuit. We just haven't managed to catch all of them. And that is because, obviously, anybody who's fighting for 20th place or 15th position, you can blame these for hogging all the camera time. Because realistically, when you're fighting for race leads, it's hard not to keep the camera on them.
Yeah, it is so difficult to not keep your eyes on this fight out the front. Dan Webster and John McCutcheon so close together. Is Dan Webster going to go for it into La Source? No, he doesn't. Instead, throws John McCutcheon slightly off of his line and will then look for a way past. But Simon Edwards is close as well. Goes to get a little bit of cooler air through the car.
Interesting choice of line going into Eau Rouge there, wasn't it?
Very interesting, yeah, but it hasn't hampered him too much because he's closing in on Dan Webster as Dan Webster closes in on John McCutcheon. Simon Edwards can't find a way through. They go 2 by 2, blocking off the road very nicely to stop it becoming 3 wide, leaving it just the two of them to fight through. But now, can Simon Edwards capitalise? Can he take advantage of compromised Dan Webster? No, he can't. Dan Webster recovers it nicely. Stays in P2 for the moment, but you can see how hungry all of these drivers are to take that P1 spot from John McCutcheon.
It must be so painful to be Simon Edwards right now, isn't it? Because he's in 3rd place, he can probably sniff a win, but every time he gets involved, every time he gets close enough, they just separate slightly and he hits a wall of thick air, and it is like treacle when you're going at that speed and your car doesn't have any more horsepower. You've hit your top speed essentially. You're only gaining about half a mile an hour on each other through that up the Kevlar straight, and all of a sudden you can see he has the overspeed by about a mile an hour, and then all of a sudden he gets hit with that air and the car just stops. It just stops progressing, and that's exactly what we're seeing, which is why the likes of Dan Webster then, who had a huge run on John McCutcheon, so he came out, that overspeed eked away because he was hit with that wall of air, and all of a sudden they're pretty much neck and neck going into Le Combe. So it is really difficult in these cars to pass. You've got to be so tactical, so clever, and you've just got to have some out-and-out raw pace rather to do it. It's very difficult, which is why it's very good to see that these drivers are treating each other with respect as well. The last thing you want to do is get a driver frustrated and they start throwing silly moves because they're getting desperate.
Yeah, that's one thing you don't want to do, is make any mistakes. You need to make sure you can keep yourself nice and safe. You don't want to, especially at this late stage of the race, throw it all away after all your hard work. So we come now into the crunch race, don't we, of this race? Lap 10 of 11, 2 more to go. We find a great fight between Dominic Lamb-Webb and Martin Booker. A switch back from Dominic. He's going to get a little bit of slipstream as well from Graham Brown just up the road. Slots in behind. Look at this. They're so close up in front as well. Dan Webster, can he get back the lead of the race? He spent about a lap there before John McCutcheon brought him back, and John keeps on fighting it, but makes the mistake, runs slightly wide. Can't be capitalised though by Dan Webster, and Simon Edwards takes advantage of a little wiggle and gets up into 2nd place. Is Dan Webster going to get shuffled back through the pack? No. Recovers the car, but a little bit of damage actually. Was that gained over the curves perhaps by Dan Webster?
I have to say, I think it was a great move, particularly by Simon Edwards. Just pure opportunistic driving there. He's been so patient. Let's have a look at, just a squiggle. Was there contact? Oh,
I don't know. It's difficult to see maybe on board from Simon Edwards. Can't quite see it there. Right, where does it happen? I think it might be over the curb just a bit. We'll see if there is. There's no contact.
No contact at all there by Simon Edwards on Dan Webster. So Webster's car must have just got damaged by hitting the curbs.
Yeah, so the back of the curb has hampered the back of the car, but it doesn't seem to be hampering Dan Webster's pace. John McCutcheon, though, is going to be very grateful to see that Simon Edwards is half a second back, gives him a little bit of breathing space down into the bus stop chicane. If, though, Simon Edwards closes that gap down and gets to maybe 3/10 of a second behind coming out of La Source, then John McCutcheon will have to go defensive, will have to try and fight his way through into Les Combes for the final time now. The white flag has been waved. We've not got any strategies, no, at least pit stop strategies to worry about. This is a good, clean fight right up until the checkered flag now. John McCutcheon powers out nicely, but Simon Edwards with a good exit is going to close that gap down. Will it be enough, though, into La Source, not into La Source, into Les Combes? Could be close. He'll have to lunge it if he wants to. Simon Edwards for the lead with John McCutcheon up in front. John weaving one way and then the other. He knows what's at stake. But this weaving means that you spend more time, flat out, more time giving the slipstream to those cars behind. Is Simon Edwards going to go for it? Will he capitalise? No, not quite. Paul Crabb, though, up into third place, getting the move done on Dan Webster.
Dan Webster will be absolutely fuming when he's gone for potentially a race lead opportunity down into fourth in exactly one lap, and he doesn't have long to sort it out after this as well. Graham Brown and Martin Booker, Dominic Lang-Webb getting very involved with each other. I'm going to have to cut away from this somewhat, but as we see down into the sort of long right-hand hairpin down the hill, it is very close between these guys as well. James Child hooks over the curb, and actually they get a little bit of a gap, so we can now focus back to see what Dan Webster and Paul Crabb are doing about the final podium position. Paul LeMay in 5th place, you can see him just behind these drivers. That is not Paul LeMay actually, because he's 8.5 seconds behind these drivers. I'm not sure who that is. It's a back marker, I believe. Might be Paul Clark. But yeah, exceptional driving throughout the entirety of this race. It's not done yet because they've got to go through Blanchimont, remember.
Yeah, so here we go. Simon Edwards is going to fancy it. Going to fancy move too wide into Blanchimont on the final lap. And Simon Edwards has gone through, but can John McCutcheon slot into the slipstream, make a move into the bus stop? He's going to be close. He's going to have to lunge it at the end for one final try. He's going for it hard onto the brakes. Can he take advantage? No, he can't. All four of them together. Oh, and there's a bit of a slide. There's a bit of contact. All of them come together, but it doesn't change the order apart from one man who's come on through. I think, though, that was a back marker potentially in there. I don't know if that was. No, it wasn't. So Simon Edwards takes the race lead on the final lap. Great stuff. John McCutcheon holds on to 2nd place. Paul Crabb in the 3rd. Dan Webster 4th. Oh, my word. That was nail-biting stuff, wasn't it? Right at the end. Especially when we saw John McCutcheon get a little bit of a slide on out of the final corner. And then just sort of a weird bit of netcode, a bit of contact happening between himself and Paul Crabb. But thankfully, that didn't change the outcome of the race. And it is a Simon Edwards race victory. The first race victory of the season, if I remember rightly, for Simon.
Yeah, it's whoever won that, as long as it wasn't John McCutcheon, it would be the first race win of the season because we've only had 2 races and he's won both of them. But just having a look at there, it's a driver who just seemed to stop Graham Brown. Not entirely sure why, but there is still racing going on out there and they're very close to each other, but they're in very damaged cars. Ray Peasley for TCE trying to get ahead of Ryan Clark, who's got a very battered looking Radical, isn't he? And I have to say Peasley's looks a lot smarter, but whilst these guys finish it all off, because it probably is going to be a fairly easy 21st place for Peasley with his nice new car, a huge congratulations to Simon Edwards and Paul Crabb. I mean, all the McCutcheon and Webster did a brilliant job as well, but you have to be, it's so hard, isn't it, to wait that long, Ed, to then get your opportunity and then to take it as well with such conviction that Edwards did. It's very impressive.
Oh yeah, it was a great drive from Edwards to take the race victory. We will be able to confirm there the finishing result. Simon Edwards in dramatic fashion on the final lap in the final sector, taking the race victory. John McCutcheon fought valiantly but couldn't take a 3rd win on the bounce. He finishes in 2nd place ahead of Paul Crabb. Much better showing from Paul Crabb than last time out. He'll be happy with the podium. Ahead of Dan Webster, Paul LeMay, Dominic Lang-Webb, Martin Booker, James Child, Mike Busson, Dave Kirkman, Chris Bassett, Darrell Taylor, Simon Maltby, Michael LeMay, Phil Jocelyn, Jamie Thomas, Jamie Bird, Stuart Mathers, Matthew Burkett, Ray Peasley in 20th place out of Ryan A. Clark, Graham Brown, Paul Clark, Carl Handley, and Frankie Dixon. So, take a deep breath down. We can finally recover after what was an exciting race, and hopefully we will be able to have drivers coming into the interview waiting room. So I'll have a chat with you after that, because that was one heck of a race.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a few drivers to maybe make an appearance. We'll give them a couple of minutes. I have sent them all a message to make sure, if you're in the top 3, please come in for interviews very quickly. I'm just having a look at the drivers. Actually, the group chat that they have, that they can go on comms, and to be fair, none of Lobby 1 are actually in there, so they might not even be looking at the Discord, but we'll give them a minute anyway. But yeah, we can sort of have, maybe I can try and find where Simon Edwards took the race lead again, because as I said, I feel like it was a sort of very impressive moment from him. If I can actually get to TV1. This is coming right at the end. This is through Blanchimont and everything, and it all almost came undone here, didn't it? For Simon Edwards, Muck Hutchinson, Crab, and Webster. And if you just look at it again, we're obviously focusing on Edwards and Muck Hutchinson. Muck Hutchinson looks up the inside here into the bus stop chicane. A fair move, and to be fair, he didn't outbrake himself. But just look at the background now. Paul Crab looked up the inside of Muck Hutchinson, and then, as I was focusing on the wrong driver, Muck Hutchinson just sort of gets net-coded like you mentioned before, Ed, and that can be so heartbreaking, can't it? If a race ends or you lose a result out by net-code, it can be one of the just most heartbreaking moments of a race.
Yeah, that's a real question, isn't it? It's just that net code, would that have changed the outcome of the race potentially? If that didn't happen, we never know. But thankfully, the race was good on. Jack, you have a pick of the bunch. Who do you want to speak to first? Because we can see several drivers now in the waiting room.
Yeah, we're going to go for our race winner, Simon Edwards, I believe this is. Simon, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations on that race victory. It wasn't exactly handed to you, was it? You had to work very hard and be very patient about it.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to get an opportunity without forcing, and even then I thought I'm just going to end up second because whoever's in the lead is going to jump off. But I just got a lucky break there with Dan challenging John and just leaving me a nice little gap to throw the car into.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were in third place for a long time then, weren't you? How frustrating is it? Because obviously these cars, there is a small slipstream effect, but as soon as you come out of the slipstream, you get hit with a wall of air and your car just stops, doesn't it? So how frustrating is it when you were going through the Kemmel Straight lap after lap, pulling the same gap that they were, getting closer and closer, and all of a sudden you just have to stop the move because your car just won't give it any more power?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. We're all running no wing, so we're all on lowest drag possible. So we're all just stuck right on the top speed. So yeah, it was frustrating, but at the same time, I was waiting for an opportunity. So I knew the last couple of laps, that they had to fight. So I'm glad everybody finished. I think there was a bit of a kerfuffle behind me in the last chicane, but I think everybody got a good race out of that, I think.
Yeah, I think everybody came out of the last chicane in the order that they went into it, so it was sort of all fairly done and dusted, I think, by then. How worried about Paul Crab were you? Because he was very quick tonight, set some purple sectors, purple lap times even, and he was right on your tail, just as close as you were to John and Dan. He was as close to you.
Yeah, I was lucky because I was getting away from him out of the La Source. So he hadn't quite got to me, so he was not challenging me into Le Coms. So, and John is Paul's not a silly man, so he's not going to throw his car at me, not like I did to Dan. So I wasn't worried about him doing a silly move on me, and I thought, because I got that run there and because I was catching the guys back up, I thought that was manageable. And then the same again on the back straight. So I was just being lucky with where I was fast and where he was fast.
Well, fair enough. It sounds like an exciting race. I'm sure you came off it with a smile on your face. Always helps if you take the top step of the podium. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I'll give a shout out to iRacing today. I think As I've been a member of iRacing about 11 years now, almost since the beta. I think I came in just on the last beta, and it's just been great. So I'm going to give a shout out to iRacing.
I'll be honest, I've asked that question to every driver I interview over the last 2 years or 18 months. I've never heard anyone give a shout out to iRacing. But no, that's fair enough. I'm glad to hear that you've been enjoying it for such a long time as well. One of the probably founders of iRacing as a service, to be honest. Simon, brilliant. Thank you very much. Congratulations on a race victory.
Yeah, thank you.
And that was Simon Edwards. Now, I think we've got our second place man, John McHutchinson. Ed, would you like to have a quick chat with John McHutchinson?
Yeah, I can have a quick chat with John, who's joined into the commentary box now. And John, that was a very entertaining race in our perspective, seeing you fighting all the way up there, P1 down in P2. There was never a time when you were actually anything but first or second. How was it from your perspective?
Yeah, I just couldn't get away. There's too much of a tow around this track still, so I couldn't get a gap, and it was just a case of keeping it clean till the end, and hopefully someone makes a mistake, but it was me, so there you go.
There we go. That was a very, very fun race, though. What was it like battling with Simon Edwards and Paul Crabb for most of the race?
I think it was Dan that was behind me
Oh,
most
it's
of the
Dan
way.
Webster, yeah,
was
battling with
Dan.
Dan Webster for most of the race. Yeah.
I just heard he picked up some damage somewhere. I think that's why Simon got by him. But the last time I seen Dan, he was flying off the track at no name corner, so I don't know what happened. It was tight, good close racing, I guess, but not my cup of tea tonight.
Maybe not quite, but still, it was a good evening from you. Another podium, not a race victory as we're used to seeing you, but still, you got to be very happy with that result.
Yeah, good solid points, right places, not to be sniffed at. There's good quality drivers in here, so and anywhere on the podium's good for me. So I'll take that tonight.
Yes, that should be a good evening from you. But looking forward, I'm trying to think of when the next round of the championship is. I'm not sure if you
It's Sebring next week.
Sebring, Sebring. So is that a track that you've got confidence in?
Not really. I don't tend to do well at Sebring for some reason. The first part of it I can't get right, and then the sunset corner, is it? That's just a hit or a miss. You either catch it or you don't. Yeah, bumpy that just throws you into the wall. So.
Well, that was good having a chat with you, mate. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out though on Absolute Sim Racing?
No, not tonight, mate. I'm fine. Just too tired and too sore.
Too tired. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Well, thank you very much anyway for joining us, John, and congratulations on P2.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
And that was John McHutchinson jumping in. I think we've got time for one more driver. We'll round out the podium. It would be lovely to speak to Dan Webster, but I'm going to bring in Paul Crabb because, to be fair to him, he was very much in fourth place for the majority, but then he came in with that podium position right at the end, and I want to give him his due as well, because again, a lot like Simon Edwards, he had to be very patient about what his race tonight. Paul, are you in the comments box? Can you hear us?
I can.
Paul,
yes.
It was an awesome race. You were a spectator. I was going to say a spectator for the majority of it. Watching those top two fights, especially. But then you really took your chance when it came, didn't you?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't quite have the top end speed of the other guys down the straights. Don't know why, because I was zero wing and no dive planes. But obviously something in my setup was just dragging me a bit. And so there's very little I could do. But I was okay in the twisty stuff, so I could keep up nicely. And then John and Simon, well, John had a bit of a moment coming onto the last straight, and I thought I'm in here, but he drafted past me, and then we kind of me, Dan, and John sort of nudged our way around the final chicane.
I was going to say, it looked like a bit of a netcode incident. I don't think we called it as netcode anyway, because in the last chicane, you sort of went up John's inside, and he sort of turned, and there was enough room, it looked like, but suddenly you started connecting with each other. Is that what, from your perspective?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I kind of understeered off a little bit to the outside, and I think John was just coming around on the more of the natural line. So when we sort of touched, I watched Sob going round. I slammed on the anchors, and then Dan got pretty much stuck behind me, and so I didn't want to just drive through John. So I kind of let him just go, and then set off again. So yeah, I was well happy with third. I thought I was lucky I was going to hang on for fourth, because it's what I was just hanging on really. I didn't think I could have pushed for the lead unless the others had done something silly in front of me.
Well, you say hanging on. I can confirm, out of all the legal lap times that have been set throughout the rest of that race, you were the fastest. 2 minute 10.75. So I think you're doing yourself a slight disservice there with saying you'd hang on to fourth place. You did a really stellar job, to be honest. I was gonna mention so. Oh yeah. In terms of sort of the camaraderie in the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series, because we mentioned it a couple of times, E-Series is very much it's almost like in real life with the sort of club racing. Like, it's a bit of a camaraderie. You know, you all get out there, you enjoy the racing, you come after, and you sort of chat about it, and smiles on your face, hopefully. Is that what it's like here in the UK and Ireland Race Series?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely developed into a good bunch of guys who, you know, try and show as much respect as they can during the race. But it's hard fought without a doubt. But no one's trying any of the dark arts to try and win, which is good. So yeah, it's the most fun racing I do, without a doubt. Good fun, and all the guys in it, you know, are generally respectful. I mean, stuff happens, but we all accept that, but rarely is it ever for any bad reason.
No, exactly. I was just about to say that. Right at the end, obviously, we mentioned about the sort of the net coding and everything, and obviously you said you didn't want to drive through John McCutcheon. I've covered a lot of series where people would have just driven through John McCutcheon there to take that second place. So really nice to see that it's all sort of settled, and it's good sportsmanship here, there, and everywhere. Paul, before we let you go and enjoy that nice third place, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Sim Racing Nerd. It's Abdul. I'm trying to get him into the series, but he races in the Radical quite a bit, but he's using the sequential shifter, and he's really quick, and I'm thinking, yeah, full respect to him for doing it the hard way. So, yeah,
what was his
I
name
know
again?
well, he streams on Twitch, Sim Racing Nerd. Abdul is his name.
There you go, Abdul. You've been called out by Paul Crabb. You must attend the next meeting, hopefully, because you got into 2 lobbies now, haven't you? This is something I completely forgot to ask, but there's 2 splits now for you guys.
There is, yeah. There's the splits, the group 1, which is generally all the regulars who've been in this series, and then there's group 2, because we've had a whole bunch of guys who've wanted to join and race with us. And it was the last couple of races, it was just getting too busy, so we split into 2 groups. And I think Chris said that there was 19, and they had a great race. Lots of respect. So hopefully we'll end up with 2 groups, maybe even 2 broadcasts at some point.
I was going to say, I do remember that there was like 40 odd drivers in the last race, so it's very nice to see that many numbers and the place growing, because it's worth mentioning, isn't it? Because otherwise people would jump into this and see, oh, there's 25 drivers. That's about 20 less than there was last week. It's like, no, they've just split them off into different lobbies. Anyway, Paul Crabb, thank you very much for joining in. Well done on the 3rd place as well. Hopefully we'll be speaking to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, gents. See you next week.
And that was Paul Crabb jumping in to have an interview with us. Ed, I think it's about that time we probably seal this one out and say goodnight. Any closing thoughts from yourself?
No, other than I am really looking forward to Sebring, such a wonderful circuit. Radicals have always provided great racing, and in fact, just the other day we were at Sebring for the MX5 Sim 3D trophy. So if everyone enjoys or is looking forward to seeing cars around Bathurst, why don't you watch the MX5s, because they provide us with 4 excellent races just the other day. But apart from that, nothing further to add, Jack, so I'll let you close out the show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. A big thank you as well to all the drivers. Congratulations on providing an excellent race. Thank you very much for everybody who's watched, liked, shared, subscribed, done whatever you want to do, even if you just sat there quietly stalking us in the background. It's always nice to have everyone along for the ride. My name's been Jack Oliphant. I've been joined by Ed May for the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series Season 4, Round 3 here at Spa. We'll be back next week at the same time for more radical action at Sebring, so make sure you subscribe or follow. Thank you very much for watching, and good night.